Hey everybody, welcome to another video. Well, it's finally here. The X-Men 97 show finally dropped on Disney Plus, so we're going to talk about it. If you want to go back and watch my reaction video, you can as well. I said a lot of the stuff that I was thinking about the whole thing. Obviously, I did a video on the action figures. And with that, I'm not going to pull it up because I took a picture on my phone, but I was at my local Meijers doing my grocery shopping, and those two figures were still there, the Jean Grey and the Magneto in the purple, the good Magneto. They had a sticker over the thing for a sale price, and they're $18.99 a piece. Part of me kicks myself for not buying it. I grabbed them. I took a picture of the price tag just so they wouldn't fight me at the register in case it didn't come up $18.99. And then I put them in my cart. Usually I hit the toy section before I do my regular grocery shopping. Had them in my cart. I made it to the end of the toy aisle. I just passed the Ninja Turtles, Playmates Ninja Turtles. I just passed them, and I was like, I can't do it. Mainly the reason I can't do it is I just didn't have the money for them. I have the money to waste on that. I had more important things to buy, food. But I was just like, literally let, however long it took me to go from, first saw them on sale, thought it was a good idea, put them in my cart, got to the end of the aisle, and I was just like, no, I can't do it. I mean, I want to do it, I can kick myself. You're not going to find them, both of those figures, that cheap for a while, unless they go to clearance, which they may. But they've had those figures for 3 weeks now. They cleared out the rest of the case and took Goblin Queen and whoever else, but and Cyclops, of course, which I did see the Cyclops the first week, and he was gone by the second week. This is the third week now going there, and it's gone. So I don't know. I'll get into the show and whether I like it or not in just a minute. However, I'm just. It's a great look. That Jean Grey is a really good looking figure too. You have both heads and everything. And if it does go to, like, say, Ollie's for $12, I'll buy it. No questions asked. But even at $18.99, I'm just like, and I know that's cheaper than Marvel Legends were 5 years ago or 4 years ago. But I'm just like, I just couldn't do it. Like I said, even if money was good right now, which it's not, I don't know, maybe, I guess. And that's the question, we're going to get them all. I grabbed Magneto. I said I was just going to get the girls, and then, so whatever. It is what it is. I didn't get them. You can yell at me for all you want for being an idiot, but, at the end of the day, I got a son, and we need to eat, and I don't make a lot of money, prices are going up daily. So, that took priority over buying some toys that are going to sit probably right there on that corner of that desk for, time memorial. All right, let's get into the show. So, I'll pull it up. I'm going to try to do it this way. I'm just going to pull up the Disney Plus, thingy here, just so you can see that the 2 episodes are available. They drop Wednesday, I think at like 2 a.m. or something like that. I was going to save them and watch them. I actually was going to save them and watch them for a Saturday morning thing. My son wasn't going to be here. My son doesn't care about this stuff. He's 12. He doesn't care about the X-Men cartoon. And he doesn't care about the toys. But he likes Rogue and Storm and those characters being in Fortnite, but he doesn't care about the show. So I thought maybe I'll save Saturday morning kind of, I never did that when the show aired. I did Saturday morning cartoons, but I didn't do it with the show. I thought, maybe I'll do that, but I had a client hit me up in the morning while I was working, and he was talking, hey, did you see the show? Did you see the show? And I said, no, not yet. And it's just like, all right, damn it, I guess I'm going to have to see it. And obviously, it's like I'm going to have to respond to it, and I'm probably going to get a video out. Probably won't get out till Friday, which I'm recording this Thursday, the day after it aired, but I'm not going to post it until tomorrow morning, along with, I'm doing an X-Men 97 parody, not safe for work, let me stress that, parody of the X-Men, specifically that lineup of those girls. that's posting tomorrow morning on my Deviant, my Patreon. So if you're interested in that, let me know and I'll give you a link to it. I'm just, like I said, I'm not going to broadcast that stuff because it is not safe for work here on YouTube. We'll save that for people who are seriously, serious about it. But anyways, so the show dropped. I finally got to it yesterday afternoon and sat down, watched both of them back to back, and I gotta say, I didn't know that they were going to do the original. I think one client sent me a link to it, but I didn't know they were going to do the original, opening credits. I didn't know that was going to be the case. That's pretty cool. I did notice a couple of changes, minor changes, here and there. There was one change I thought was just kind of funny. I was like, here we go. I know this is going to be a ride. And changing to Rogue's little opening bump, if you know what I mean. Again, not safe for work. I'm not going to get into that in detail, but you probably know what I'm talking about. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Know what I mean? And there was a little change there to her opening thing. And then, I think there were some other changes too, and they had like show scenes probably from the season, and then they kind of tied it up just like the end. I thought that was interesting. I thought it was good. I could tell right off the bat that my apprehension towards the animation from seeing the trailers. I don't know what it is. It's like by seeing an action figure render and then seeing an action figure sculpt or ready for to go, and then seeing it holding the action figure in hand, right? I feel that the original things that I saw were the renders, and I think watching the trailers, we're watching the sculpts of the action figures, and seeing the show live on Disney Plus was like having the action figures in hand. It's like night and day. The line work, a lot of things that I was kind of like cringing at when I first saw it are completely a non-issue when you get to the actual animation. It is awesome. It's spot on. There was a couple of wonky scenes like there isn't anything, but for the most part, everything seems to be fluid, flawless, top-notch, perfect. I'm assuming, and I'm not 100% sure, but I'm assuming that they're using 3D models to do the shot renderings, and then either hand animating, like rotoscoping right over the top of it, or they're using some kind of toon shader. I don't think they're using a toon shader, because toon shaders are just not quite there. Trust me, I know about toon shaders, and they're not quite there right now. Especially if you watch some of the Japanese stuff, it's just like, it ain't there yet. So I'm thinking that they probably rotoscoped it over 3D models. So what they do is they animate it in 3D, probably not spot on, but as far as the costumings and so maybe they did. But I think they used it just like you do rotoscoping, where you take an actor that sort of kind of got the costume on you're going to draw, and sort of kind of has the build, and then you shoot the shots, which are called I have a name for them. The mats. I think they're called the mats. Shoot the mats. I remember this just from watching the Ralph Bakshi making of Fire and Ice, and then the animator would go over and they would trace the outline of the figure from the mats, and then they would go ahead and then they'd render the costume and the character over top of that. Kind of like what they did in Masters of the Universe. I don't remember that when they did that rotoscoping for some of the animation sequences. I don't know if that's what they did here, but it looks pretty like that's what they did in a more modern kind of way, which doesn't look like Bakshi stuff or Filmations. It looks more of a modern way of doing it. They got Disney money, so I would and this is a huge deal, this X-Men 97. I think this is probably one of Disney's last Hail Marys to see if they can win the game, because in a Hail Mary it was a pass. It was quite the play. So I'm sure they're dumping some money into this to get this to work. But like I said, the animation, blows the old animation from the 90s out of the water. Just blows it out of the water. Again, there's a few small, minor, personal proclivities that I have about that the old show did because it was the 90s, and wink, wink, nudge, nudge, know what I mean, know what I mean. And they seem to, I'm not saying it's all gone, because I thought it was like, oh, they really cleaned it up. No, they still left a few shots in there like, but they definitely, it was definitely a clear ultimatum that you guys need to watch yourselves. And Disney's probably like this, we're going to be watching this, you guys tooth and nail, and anything that doesn't get, everything that you had to squeak through, we ain't going to do the stuff. We're going to have Rogue versus Apocalypse scenes in the, like we did in the first animation, right? I can definitely tell that was clear that that's what's going on here. But like I said, there's a couple of shots like, that was close. You're really walking a razor's edge here. Which again, makes me, leads me to believe that the show just in general, that stuff aside, in general this show is walking a razor's edge where Disney is really like, they want to interfere and they want to do stuff. And I think that the people working on the show are like, hey, look, there's a clear fan base out here, and this fan base generated an entire generation, predominantly the millennial generation. People that are 10 years, like I said, when I was 10 in 1983, these kids were 10 in 1993, right? They're millennials. And it spawned an entire, it's what kept X-Men alive, really. And it made X-Men super popular in the 90s. And I know, it's just like Star Wars. It's like they dropped the ball with Star Wars. I don't know how you could screw up Star Wars, but Disney found a way. I think with this one, like, you know what, we can't screw up this X-Men thing. This has got to work. And you could clearly see there was a definite, like I said, the show could fall apart by the end of the 10th episode. And Disney could get its way, but you can really tell there's a butting of the heads between the animators and the, and the Disney brass. I'm not Iger or whoever, but just whoever's in charge is calling the shots. First of all, I want to dispel a myth, in my opinion. Now, you might disagree with me, but all of the talk that I see, and I'll get to the talk in a moment, but all of the talk that I see about, everything going woke, I was so enraptured in it, but I really didn't notice much of the woke stuff. I know people don't like the term, but I mean, I didn't notice it, the whole, I like I said, it's only the first 2 episodes. It could go that direction. Who knows what's going to happen? But I didn't see anything that was any more woke than the first version of this cartoon from the 90s. I didn't see anything that was any more woke than Claremont's original X-Men, right? I mean, you've got a diverse cast already built in. You didn't have to mess with anything. I know Morph is supposed to be, maybe he's, gender fluid. Well, he's physically fluid, so sure, I'll give you that. That makes sense. See, that type of, who cares about Morph for one thing? He's a dumb character nobody cared about. That's why they killed him in the first episode, or a couple episodes in the old one, and then of course they brought him back for some reason. I don't know why, because Logan Wolverine likes his Morph, and I don't know if they're gonna go down that avenue either. But I don't think that they are. I don't know much about the firing of the dude, the showrunner. But I think there was an agenda he wanted to fulfill, and I think Disney's like, hey, you know what? This is gonna torpedo the thing. I don't know if that's all true. It's all just junk I hear on the internet. And again, let's deal with the elephant in the room. The fucking internet. That's all I gotta say. I still see them too. It's just like, people are so hyperbolic on the internet. And I know it's just, let's get the clicks. I need to feed, I guess I need to feed my family. It's beyond that. It's more like I need to fund my whatever, right? Hookers and blow. I don't know, whatever you're into. But the the show, clearly it's like a lot of these people online, it's just like they get so hyperbolic, they clickbait the shit out of their thumbnails. They're just like, they will be contrarians to the end, just be, like I said, I think as much as people shill something, I think is just as equally as idiotic are the people that are you know, overt contrarians just for the sake of getting attention. You know, I'm not that person. Like I said, I'll tell you how many times I shit in a day, you know what I mean, and what it looks like. I'm not covering up anything. This is exactly how I am, trust me. I mean, I got to pull the reins back on how I really am, especially if you looked at my body of my work, to, you know, to not get kicked off YouTube. So you're getting, I mean, like, you know, I keep scratching my nuts and picking my nose in every video. You think I really care about my image? But yeah, I think it comes down to, I think there are a lot of people out there that want to see this fail because they just want to, it's just like the Joker, you know, they want to see the world, they just want to watch the world burn. I don't know why. I'm not that person. I never have been that person. Every time I see something I don't like that I wanted to like, I'm generally disappointed. And it doesn't mean that because it's woke. It doesn't mean because, for me, it just comes down to shoddy phoned-in work and, you know, and crappy storytelling. Those are the two things that really get me. I don't care how many woke characters you throw into the thing. You know, because by putting a bunch of woke characters in there for just the sake of it and doing some kind of agenda is in it of itself bad storytelling. And in it of itself is it may not be phoning it in because people might be, sorry, McAfee's yelling at me here. It might be not phoning it in. They might be spending all of their, you know, waking energy to fulfill their agenda. But I think agenda writing is just bad storytelling at the end of the day. You can, like I said, just like the original X-Men, you can talk about social issues, you can talk about the Holocaust, you can talk about civil rights, you can talk about, you know, the gay pride movement. You can do all of that stuff in a show and make it work because they did it. Chris Claremont did it. You know, the guys that worked on the original show in the 90s, they did it, right? Everybody, and they kind of basically are taking the lead from Claremont, but they've done it before, and it worked, and it wasn't shoved in your face, and that's good storytelling. Just doing the stuff, heavy-handed pushing of someone's agenda is not good storytelling. Heavy-handed anything is a bad storytelling. I think there has to be subtext, subtlety, innuendo, ambiguity. It's got to make you think, and it's just like if you watch a show and it makes you think, like, oh yeah, the plight of the mutants is sort of like the plight of fill in the blank, whatever people that are being persecuted, right? And then you think about how it gets you to think about it. It doesn't just tell you exactly word for word how someone thinks their opinion on the situation. So we'll leave it at that, right? I don't like to go into that stuff anyways because I'm just giving you what I think about it. It might not be, I'm not coming from any kind of authority, you know, or whatever. It's just what I see, observations that I've made, and I'm just telling you what I think. So what do we cover? The animation, awesome. You know, the characters look spot on. I mean, and that sequence, I think, there's a bunch of sequences. I think the sequence in the club when Jubilee is dancing and stuff, I think that animation was really nice. That just really appealed to me. That was really nice. I think a lot of the fight sequences it was just total, it was superpowers, superhero fight scenes without going dragged out for like a Marvel Cinematic movie where it's just like, oh god, all right already, right? It's like they throw these Sentinels around and blow them up, just like, you know. I think it was perfect. I think that part was. I don't think that part was heavy-handed or overdone. Things that happened in the story, as far as things. This is not a spoiler video, by the way. Anyways, I might talk about a scene as in, hey, you know, the club scene with Jubilee, right? I'm not telling you what happened. Go watch it and you'll see what happens. But there are certain scenes in the movies, in the show, in both episodes, that I was like, huh, what's going on? I mean, it's generally intrigued. It's like, what's going on with that? There's some hinted relationship stuff that, and it's not, at least it doesn't appear to be woke stuff. I mean, as far as, it's not like they're trying to it just seems like this seems to be something that would happen in the X-Men, Claremont's X-Men, but at the same time, it's just like, I don't think has this been talked about before? Have they gone down this route? And I thought that was neat. I gotta say, there was a certain, I'll get into it later, and you can always ask me in the comments, but there was a certain satisfaction towards the end of the second episode, when there's some drama going on, and I had a little bit of satisfaction. Little, it wasn't totally vindicated in the way I would want to do it, but I chuckled a little bit, like. But I don't know where it's going, so I could be totally wrong. It could blow up my face, so who knows. There's characters, things have changed, obviously, since the original show. I know this is supposed to be a continuation, and I believe, heck, look, you're using the original music and the original opening bump. This is not He-Man Revolution or Revelation. This literally is, for the most part, that I can see, and correct me if I'm wrong, because remember, I'm not super well versed in the original cartoon, because I didn't watch it when it came out, and I haven't seen every episode. But it seems to me, because I watched Graduation Day, and I watched a few other episodes in season 5 to kind of gear up for this, and it seems to be pretty much a continuation of the show, which the He-Man stuff said they were going to, but then didn't. This delivers. Like I said, they might have changed things that weren't right in the original show. I couldn't tell you if that's true or not, from what I've seen. And even if they did, who the fuck cares? You know what I mean? Is it good storytelling? Is it? And you like these characters? You have are you attached to these characters? Do you like these characters? Do you like them visually? Do you like their personalities? Do you like everything about them? And does the story intrigue you? And does it keep you entertained? That, at the bottom line, that's what it's all about. If they change someone's power a little bit, it's just like where their power is like, I didn't know they could do that. They've been doing that forever. And they do that in the comic book all the time. Where you're like, I didn't know that person could do that. There's that. There's, there's things where, the powers, sometimes some of the powers in question seem to be a little like, as in like, ooh, it's comic book, right? You're just making this shit up. This stuff just happens. You can watch this stuff, or you can read the comic books, right? And if you really get that uptight about, the reality of it, or, the logic of it, they're freaking superheroes. Just don't understand people with their incessant need to be able to rationalize just outrageous, fantastic stuff, right? Where it's just like, well, that would never happen. Yeah, you're right. It never would happen, because there's no such thing as mutants. There's no such thing as superheroes. You're right. It would never happen. But it's got to be somewhat based in reality. It is. It's enough. I mean, look at all the shit that went on that made Marvel popular in the first place. All the stuff went on in the 60s with the atomic age and all that bullshit, Stan Lee pseudoscience, right? Do you think that stuff was was correct? No. But we've matured since then. I'm playing the devil's advocate. Oh, we've matured since then. And we're more sophisticated now. Are we? Are we? Right? Keep telling yourself that. If that's what makes you sleep better at night, makes you think that you're, somehow sophisticated, well, keep doing that. I don't really fucking care if it's sophisticated. I don't care if I'm definitely not a sophisticated person. Let's leave it at that. So me trying to appear that I'm more sophisticated than I am is, you know, is what do you call it? It's a fool's errand. And speaking of that fool's errand, and I gotta say, I'm somewhat guilty of this, is there's people, and including myself, you watch my video on talking about, which X-Men you like. There are people who want to say, and some people honestly agree, honestly think this way, and that's fine, but I think it seems like you get into like this weird trap where you want to say, oh, the Chris Claremont X-Men stuff is the best version of the story, right? Because I think you don't want to look like an NPC and say that the X-Men, the 90s X-Men stuff is the most popular. But you want to know something? And trust me, I've tried to get people into the original, like the Down Under X-Men with Mark Silvestri, the stuff in the late 80s. And it seems like predominantly the people who are really into the X-Men, they like the Jim Lee stuff a lot better than the Silvestri stuff. And they like the Jim Lee stuff from the 90s, and they like the cartoon. Now, this is my example. Let's take Metallica, for example. Chris Claremont, the original, and not just, Byrne, all of it, right? Up to the cartoon, right? All the comic prior to the cartoon. Let's call that Ride the Lightning, the album Ride the Lightning, right? Let's call the cartoon and Jim Lee 90s X-Men, let's call that Master of Puppets, right? There are people, including myself sometimes, who say, oh, Ride the Lightning is the superior album because you think you're cool for some reason, right? The only reason I say Ride the Lightning is good is because I heard it before I heard Master of Puppets, and it just kind of resonated with me first. But I think there are people who, listen to the both, and they're like, oh, I sound cooler if I think Ride the Lightning's better because I'm more sophisticated. Or somehow, I don't want to look like an NPC, like I said. And then there are people like, oh, Master of Puppets is the best. I think the people who like Ride the Lightning clearly know that Master of Puppets is a superior album to Ride the Lightning, whether it's the recording, the quality of the recording, whether it's the arrangements of some of the songs, whether it's just the general popularity of it. There's a reason why Stranger Things picked Master of Puppets to be their crazy song in there, and they didn't pick, say, Fade to Black, or For Whom the Bell Tolls, right? It's because they know what the most popular song by Metallica was outside of, I want to say One is, but maybe that's just my own bias. But yes, definitely Master of Puppets, probably the most popular Metallica song. There's a reason why they picked that. And this analogy all translates over to this. Yes, I think the people like myself who say, oh, I like the original comic better than the new cartoon, I think it falls into just timing. I mean, it's like I said, when I was 10, 11, 12 is when I was reading the comic book. The cartoon didn't exist yet, right? And then there are people who are 10 or 11, 12 when the cartoon hits, right? But clearly they're going to like that better. But I am the first one to admit, even though I like the Down Under X-Men's my favorite, right? At the end of the day, I know that the most popular, just like I know that at the end of the day, Master of Puppets is probably the most popular, or is the most popular Metallica song. The X-Men cartoon, Jim Lee X-Men, and 90s X-Men, which is just put it into the 90s X-Men, is definitely a lot more popular than, say, 80s X-Men or 70s X-Men. Hands down. The X-Men were always popular in the 80s, sure. And they're always popular since 75 when they did Giant Size X-Men. And they gained popularity, but it didn't go nuclear. It didn't go crazy until the 90s. And for all of the reasons that I just suggested. So I'm well aware that that's the superior version in most people's eye. So, like I said, I just wanted to make that clear because there's, like I said, I've been hearing, and again, I hear people even online are like bitching now about this show because it's like, oh, well, that was not how it was in the comic. And then I see that they're like 10 years younger than me, and I go, really? I know in your mind the cartoon in 90s X-Men is your favorite X-Men. And you're trying to tell me that when you went back and read the comics, when you were too young to read them or weren't even alive, that those are, that's what you're going on. If it's somebody my age or older, I would say, I could see them saying that. And again, we've gone over this, not on video and not before the internet. I went over this in plenty of, talks with my friends back in 1992 or 99 or whenever this, or 93, whenever this cartoon first came out in the 90s. I already had this discussion. I said, you know what? What's with them changing changing from the comic, right? They're like, oh, well, they're just making it for a newer audience, and they're just trying to tidy things up, and the Claremont stuff was a little unruly, and they're trying to make it more palpable for people. I've already had this conversation. I had this conversation more than 30 years ago. I can remember vividly standing in Comics Corner having this conversation with the people that worked there and the customers, and we were all having this big debate. That would have been like 1992 or 93, whatever, right around that time. I can't remember when the cartoon came out. I want to say it came out in 93. I guess I could check it. But anyways, regardless, don't hold me to the exact year, but right around that time. And like I said, I was in my 20s at the time. So, I turned 20 in 1993. So, I was definitely not a teenager, and I wasn't, a less than 10-year-old. So, like I said, and I had been reading comic books since I was 10. 10, 11. And like I said, 84 is kind of when I really got into comics hardcore. But especially X-Men comics. So yeah, I find that a lot of the arguments about that to be kind of crazy. What are we at? 32. Okay. Forgive me, this one goes over an hour. I think I got a lot to say on this. But it's kind of a long time coming with the anticipation of the show. Things that I love about the show, I guess, probably, is I love that the storytelling is good, right? Some people say, it's bad writing. It's fine for what it is. It's close enough for government work. And it's a breath of fresh air, a far reprieve from any of the Disney Plus, late Marvel MCU stuff, by far, right? This writing is masterclass in comparison to that stuff. So what would you rather have? If you're going to bitch and complain about the writing in this show, do you want more of the MCU shit? Because you know what? They can easily do that. They probably would have. So, I would say, in this regard, quit your bitching. And people also say stuff like, they changed a bunch. Here we go again. Like I said, I'm not getting into that. For me, I think the storytelling is fine. I was engaged. I really like it. I like where I see some of the stuff that they're kind of setting up, and I want to see where it goes. I'm intrigued. I didn't watch this and go, that was okay. I really watched this and was like, I fucking love this. Call me an idiot for liking it, but I liked it. And it's been a long time. Trust me, a long time. I think the last time I really got excited like this was the first season of Mandalorian, and we can see where that went. So, be careful what you wish for. But anyways, or maybe that's not the right analogy, but yeah, I liked it. I thought it was great. I think they're definitely taking the pages from the comic, and they're putting it in there. They are changing things around a bit. They're doing things a little differently. There's certain events that happen in these first two issues that are very similar to events that happened in the original comic book, and but they're just done differently because they just have to be. Just like watching the Rise of the Dark Phoenix, or the Rise of the Phoenix, and then the Dark Phoenix saga on the original version of this cartoon. It's just like, you've got Jubilee there. She wasn't there before. You got Rogue there. She wasn't there before. There's no Shadowcat, no Kitty Pryde. So right then and there, they had to do things differently, right? And just like they're doing now, is they're trying to pick certain story elements, and they've got a cast of characters. The only way to fix that would be just to go back and just verbatim do Chris Claremont stuff. I don't think they need to. Would it be interesting? Sure. But I know those stories, and here's the thing. I know those stories because I've read them. And this show is giving me something new. Like I said, there's a couple of things in here I think that they're doing that I've never seen in the X-Men comics before, and I want to know where they're going. And so it's all new to me, Sure, I mean, there's certain things that happen. Like, yeah, I remember when that sort of happened in the comic book. I remember when this sort of happened in the comic book, but it's told differently. And again, even with that stuff, which I'm a little more familiar with, I still want to see where they're taking it. How are they going to resolve it? What's going to happen? Or are they going to resolve it? Let's get into the characters, though. Hands down, when it comes to the X-Men, there's no question in my mind that most people are like this. Rogue is the best character. I love Rogue. And like I said, did they do a good job of her in this cartoon? I think so. There's a couple of things that were a little questionable, but at the end of the day, I just look away. There's some proclivities, if you know what I mean, that I would like to see more of, but that's not going to happen. But out in that, the voice actress, she sounds older. She sounds a little different. She's aged, just like all the original voice actors have aged. But for the most part, she's still her, right? And Rogue's not supposed to be younger. It's not a prequel. So she's going to sound a little bit more mature, a little older. I would probably put Rogue, as far as her age in this, somewhere like in her late 20s, early 30s. That's what I would put her in age. Jubilee, same thing. I would put Jubilee's probably right smack in her 20s. I would say Jubilee's like, graduation day. They graduated, from the academy. I would put her like she's like a fresh out of college grad. She's a fresh, maybe good, 24, 23, 24. I would put Jubilee at that age. I mean, they went into a club, and I think spoiler alert on this part, Gambit was drinking, or having a drink, which is odd that they put that in there, but I mean, clearly they serve alcohol, and I know for a fact that most of those clubs, including the ones back in the 90s, if they sold alcohol, you had to be at least 19, and those were only on certain nights. Most of the nights you had to be 21, so it's clear that Jubilee's in her 20s in this. Jean Grey, obviously, she's of that age where she's coming across, I would say probably in her early to mid-30s. There's obviously a situation that's going on that won't give away, but you might know about, but watch the show. That I would place her in, not just the situation that her and Scott are in, but the situation that a lot of, I think, women might feel in a certain, who've lived a life and are placed into a certain circumstance. I think that probably a lot of those people are right around that mid-30s range. Like I said, Logan, he'll never age, although he's always perpetually middle-aged. Beast seems older. Everybody seems more mature and older. And I think that comes across in the storytelling and the characterization. So, again, with the characters, I think they did a great job with that as well. Scott, Cyclops. I remember there was a time when X Factor came out, I thought Cyclops was the coolest looking character next to Wolverine. And it wasn't until I started to learn more of the backstory, it's like, he's kind of a dickhead, right? And in this, they do a good job of kind of keeping that, but at the same time kind of redeeming himself. Because, at the end of the day, if you're a by-the-numbers person, right? If you are, you're a leader and you want to do things by the numbers and you're following your training, right? You're going to come off kind of like a douchebag. I mean, it's why, drill sergeants come off as douchebags. They're following what they're supposed to do. Your captain, your lieutenants, those guys come off like douchebags. Well, it's because they're following a protocol, that they have to follow by. And, you being the new greeny recruit and me, Mr. Troublemaker, you might think that you're in the right and that they're a bunch of jerks, right? Well, it's kind of how the military works. And in this regard, it's sort of like the military as well. You know what I mean? So, I think the parts I thought I didn't like about Scott Summers back in the days is the relationship stuff that always... I didn't care about the fact that, he was kind of a hard ass as far as a leader. That makes sense. But what bothered me with him was just stuff that's like, what are you doing, dude? It's just like, oh my goodness, you screwed that relationship up, or you screwed this up, or it's like, I can't believe you do. I mean, those are the type of things that irritated me about him. And he doesn't seem to be doing any of that stuff. Although, I don't know, there's something happened towards the end of that last episode, too, that I think the shit's going to hit the fan. So I don't know what's going to happen. It's cool. It's like I said, I'm generally intrigued. I mean, I want to know. I'm really looking forward to, watching these every week. And again, I'm glad they come out weekly. I didn't want to binge watch this and whole thing. I'm glad that, I get a little, just like the comic books come out every month. You get a little bit of a taste every so often, and it spread the love out a little bit. I'm definitely going to watch both of these episodes before I watch the third episode. So right there, and I'll probably keep doing that where I'll watch the previous episode before I watch the new episode. So the rewatchability factor is up there. And then once it's all said and done, we're probably not going to see a second season for at least a year, so I'll probably watch the whole thing again just in sequence and then binge watch it later. So I'll probably see it multiple times. I want to see animation stuff. I want to see different things. Like I said, I love the characters. So I guess that's what I'm saying with the characters. Obviously, I love what they did with Rogue's look. I love the Mohawk Rogue. Mohawk. That's when I got into comics, was when she had the Mohawk. So Mohawk Rogue has always been my favorite. I think she looks amazing. I'm not a huge fan of that white costume. It's okay. I know that I could put her in punk rock. Well, they might now. Not spoiler alert, but wink, wink. They might now. And it might have been why they gave her the Mohawk. I don't know. But we'll see how it's going on. What's going on there. But I've never been a huge fan of that. For one thing, I don't like Rogue's outfit at all. I never liked that outfit. And I'm not being a contrarian. I never liked Rogue's Jim Lee. I don't like Jim Lee's design sense. I know everybody loves it, and I said I can acknowledge that it is the most popular Rogue, and it's the most popular of these characters. But I just do not like Jim. I don't like any of the Image guys' designs. I don't like Liefeld's design sense. I think all of their design sense, to me, is just overbaked, and I just don't like it. I don't like all the crap. But, however, I will take Jim Lee's interpretations well over the modern day design sense. And even the 2000s, like the Josh Whedon stuff and all that stuff, I didn't like Astonishing X-Men. I didn't like all the pinstripes and all the, the seams and I don't like that. I just don't like it. I like smooth, seamless stuff. I think simple is better. Like I said, I don't like convoluted. I don't like a bunch of greebles, like Scott Summers with this thing he's got. I don't like all that greebles. I don't like that. I like the smoother look that he had. He doesn't have to look like he's, a 70s swashbuckler with his swashbuckler boots. They could have updated certain things, but I just don't like all that extra gobbledygook. I don't like the thigh straps. I gotta say, with Rogue and all the girls that have it, I don't like the belts. I don't mind the X-Men belt. I wasn't really a big fan of that black and yellow X-Men costume like what Kitty Pryde wore either. It was okay. With Rogue, for me, like I said, hands down, my favorite Rogue is the Down Under Rogue. Basically a corset, leotard with thigh highs and the leg gloves. The green and the black. I love the black undersuit. That was like my thing. I don't know if I like that suit better, but I do like the 1985 Rogue with the she does have the belts, the crisscross belts, like the punk rock belts, the 80s belts, and then she had on the crop top, halter top, And she had that kind of starry, weird hair and just like the ankle boots. And then she had on the black bodysuit. I just like the black bodysuit. I think that's a cool idea. It's like, well, she can't touch anybody, so she has to have this full, neck to toe bodysuit. And then she can just, it's like a blank canvas of black, and then you can just put on things. I like that. The Jim Lee thing is just, don't like the jacket, don't like the yellow and the green two-tone thing. I think that looks so 90s. Of course, Storm, Mohawk Storm, and not just Mohawk Storm, but, leather vest Storm with leather pants Storm. I think that's the coolest looking one personally, because it's when I started reading it. Although I do like her original costume. I think that's kind of hot too. And it's got some interesting stuff. I like that too. Beast looks fine. I don't mind the Beast. The Beast looks fine. I guess I have no issue with Beast. Jean Grey, that costume Jean Grey wears, I've never liked it. I literally have never liked it. I mean, I don't hate it, but I just, for me, if it was Jean Grey, I would be putting her in the X Factor costume, the green and yellow. But you can't have two characters in green and yellow on there. And even if you wanted to do a green and yellow, you could have done the red and yellow from the later X Factor. But I like the X Factor costume personally, the best. I like it better in her original, skirt and whatever costume, or her Phoenix costume. I think my favorites, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, I like Marvel Girl costume with the cap, the skull cap, and then the hair on the sides. I like that from like literally the first couple of issues of X Factor. That's what I like for Jean Grey, but that's not what they're going to do. They're going to do this one, so they make references to her costume, and she pulls her old costume, the one with the skirt and everything out in there. Spoiler alert, a little Easter egg there. Bishop, he's a 90s guy to me, and so therefore I don't dislike his character. I do find that he's very sidelined in this. I don't know what it is. You would think that they would want to put the black guy, front and center. But maybe because he's like super hyper masculinized black. I mean, he's huge. He's giant. He's built. Like he could obviously take a beating. And he's kind of like a big tough dude, right? And maybe they like, oh, we want a black guy in the foreground, but we don't want a big tough hyper masculine black guy. So I think they sidelined him a little bit. I'm not a big fan of him, and he'll grow on me. I don't know enough about him. I mean, I know his origin and stuff, but I mean, I didn't have enough experience with him. But I just find that he's sidelined. I think Morph's sidelined. He had a couple of cool, funny bits and stuff in there. I think he's kind of sidelined. I don't mind them sidelining. I do not like Gambit, because Gambit reminds me of a lot of different people that it's not that I don't like them, it's just that he's that guy, right? He is totally that guy, and because the whole him and Rogue thing, just Rogue's my girl. I don't want this tall drink of water douchebag, Mr. Fancy Talking, Mr. Bad Boy. But like I said, I don't know where the story's going, but there's some stuff going on, and I chuckled in regards to him towards the end of the one episode. Natter boost not. Whatever. I know the chicks love him, obviously, and I know there's dudes that think he's a cool dude and stuff. Whatever. I just don't like that guy. It's not that I don't like Gambit. I just don't like that guy. To me, he's that guy. Don't be that guy. But yeah, outside, Wolverine's cool. Wolverine's fine. I think he's Wolverine. I think they handled him just fine. It's like he hasn't missed a beat. There's certain scenes where he's basically ready to go full Wolverine berserk on everybody, and he has to hold himself back, or the team holds him back. So they have not neutered Wolverine, at least that I have seen so far. If you think they have, let me know what your logic is behind that. But for me, I don't think they've neutered him all. I think all of these characters, like I said, there might be a couple of things here and there, little teeny little things that they've altered here and there. Maybe some for the good, maybe some for the bad. But like I said, I would say they're 90% what they used to be. 90% sure a lot better than 20% or 10%. So, again, close enough for government work. I think it's fine. So, like I said, I don't want to get into the story, and we are only 2 episodes in, and I'll probably, most likely, do a video talking about the next episode, and I'll probably do a recap episode afterwards and tell you my final thoughts after seeing the whole thing, yada, yada, yada. But right now, I've been waiting for this for a while, and like I said, I'm the first one to say I wasn't there at ground zero when this show came out, so... And for all of the reasons I just mentioned, it's not my X-Men. A lot of people like to say, well, it's not my X-Men. Like I said, again, back to the people online that I've seen people now bitching about, like, they're just bitching about stuff like this. Like, really, what the hell do you want? You know what I mean? It's just like me. There's certain things I want to see differently. Right? Personal tastes that I like to see. That's the only nitpick I can have. I otherwise have no nitpicks for the show. Like, literally, the story they've presented to me so far, I have no nitpicks. I have no, they should have did this instead. Because, like I said, they opened up, a lot of shit happened in these 2 episodes, and I'm still trying to process it. Maybe after I watch it a few times, I'm like, oh, maybe I have some nitpicks now, but for right now, no. Like I said, all of my nitpicks are personal taste things that I would like I said, character costumes I'd like to see instead of the ones that we have, but then, of course, it's not the same. It's not what they originally intended to do with going back to the 90s. That's the other thing I gotta say about this, and this raises a question, is who is this for? Is this... Because, like I said, I think the He-Man thing is a good example where this did not work. It's like, okay, we want a new generation of people to get into He-Man, right? But we also want to cash in on the people that have nostalgia for it. They did definitely, when they released the Motu Origins, they definitely hit the nostalgia button, like with myself. And it worked. Their ploy worked. I bought the toys. But like I said, I saw it firsthand with my son. I mean, when it first came out in 2020, my son was 8, right? And so, which was the year, that's how old I was when I got into He-Man, 1982. Or 8, yeah. So he was 8, 9, whatever. My son was that, and I did what the commercials showed. Hey, play with these with your son. You love them because they're from your generation, and it didn't work. He got into it for about a year and a half, and then totally out of it, right? Doesn't care about all of his guys. Everything he has is all sitting in storage out and, put away. It's all finally bagged everything up, because it's, take care of everything. And, he doesn't care about it at all. Maybe he still, he sees my guys in here when he's in my room, and he's like, oh, that's all I need to do is to see that stuff. But he doesn't care about owning them. Oddly enough, he pulled his Mad Balls out at 12 years old, and he wants to finish off his Mad Ball collection. He loves the pancake heads, and Mad Balls, I guess, is just an entire line of pancake heads. But anyways, so, who is this for? So if they're under the assumption that, hey, we want to cater to these people who are 40-ish millennials, and then their kids, and it's like, and we want to get this new generation, just like those millennials got a new generation. I think if you wanted to do that, how should I put this? So I guess you couldn't cover that. So, a good example. So my genre, 10 years prior, right? It's the comic. It's the 80s. It's pretty much the comic in the 80s for me. No show, right? So then it comes along, you get Jim Lee redesigns the characters, the 90s happen, they redo the show, they create 90s X-Men. And I keep telling you, I didn't like it when it first came out because it wasn't my 80s X-Men. So I really didn't get into the show until just recently. So I guess the logic there would be that, you know, you would have to change the show again, right, to be 2020's X-Men, which right now in the comic, I mean, that's kind of what they should have done. But the thing is, the comics aren't really that great. As opposed to, the comics in the 90s, people really loved them. They were super popular. But the comics now in the 2000s aren't that great. So I guess they're in like stuck between a rock and a hard place. And they're like, well, we can't do that because none of the storylines are that great nowadays. So we can't do today's X-Men in an animated show. We'd have to do, what's the most popular? Well, the most popular is the 90s show, right? So they're like, let's go back and do that. So, but now again, like I said, for younger generation's like, well, that's my dad's X-Men. That's not my X-Men. My X-Men is the stuff that's out now. But none of the kids are reading those. Here's the thing, though, is the kids in the 90s, they were reading the comic. And because it was good. It was okay. It was good. But, and people loved Jim Lee, and you had all of that going on. It was like a perfect storm. And that's why that happened. Today, the kids aren't reading the comics. And they probably haven't been reading like the last 20 years of the comics. So if you were to base the show on that, you don't have the reader bit. You don't have the cross, I mean, a lot of kids that grew up on the show that never read the comic, too. So you'd think you'd have that now. But, I don't know. It seems like, what can you do? I mean, you're kind of stuck. I think this is probably the best decision they probably could have done. Is just, hey, what was the most popular, and we'll do that. We can't do 80s X-Men because nobody's going to care. Except for a bunch of old farts that they don't want as our audience. And the new kids don't care about that stuff. They don't want grandpas. I don't know if it's grandpa, but they don't want, And then they also don't want, I guess it could be grandpa, to tell you the truth. But anyways, they don't want, nowadays, because none of the kids are reading it, and none of the old people. See, here's the thing, is people from the 80s, like myself, can watch the cartoon, even though it's not their X-Men, and they would rather it be their way. They still, and obviously I'm still watching, I'm still intrigued, right? And that still happened in the 2000s, or in the 90s. I mean, I think there were still plenty of people who watched the cartoon at Ground Zero who were also people like myself who liked the 80s X-Men. Again, I just kind of got out of comics in general in the 90s. But you're not going to do like 2000. You're probably not going to do Astonishing X-Men, like the Josh Whedon X-Men or any of that stuff, just because. Or Ultimate X-Men. I don't think they're going to do that. I know that X-Men Evolution show is popular, and there's a lot of people wanting them to redo that. But I think that if you were to lay it all on paper, and you were to ask me and say, which do you think is our best, which one should we go with the most, I probably reluctantly would have said, yeah, the 90s X-Men. I think that's what you guys should do. So I think that they made the right decision. Because like I said, there's not really, if you think about the logic behind everything and how fickle fans can be, and how, young kids are nowadays, I mean, you're kind of stuck. However, I still say that, and I still ask the question, who is it for? Is it for those specific people? Because, like I said, I don't think you're going to get kids into this. I don't think my son, or kids around his age are going to get into this. He doesn't, like I said, he knows about it. He doesn't care. And I'm not saying that, my son's just like, because there's obviously kids that are really into stuff that, comics and stuff like that. There are some. I just don't think there's enough of them. I don't think that the craze, the buzz, I don't think that the 90s, whatever that was that happened, whether it's this, I guess it's this, the whole thing comes down to the speculator bubble. speculator boom. I think that's what caused. So if you were to take events or things that happened and understood why comics, or why these characters, I just call them superheroes because they're beyond comics now. These superhero characters got popular, and I would say 90s it was the speculator, boom and bust. It's what made it popular is also what killed it in the 90s. And I think the same thing happened in the last 20 years. It's the MCU that made it mainstream, and it's the MCU that killed it. And it's Disney being the culprits behind it. Now Disney does this, and I guess this is part of the X-Men animation universe, the MAU, not really the MCU. I guess that's how you would classify it. I don't know. I said I don't know. People are just calling it just the Marvel Animation. It says right at the top. It's Marvel Animation, right? Instead of saying Marvel movies or Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's Marvel Animation. And again, I think if they, I'll start ending it here. I think if they took this show and I think if they took this show, if it's successful, and I have a feeling that it's going to be successful enough. I think the next thing they need to do for animation is they need to do Spider-Man, and they need to do literally what they did with this, is just continue the 90s Spider-Man cartoon and just bring it just exactly what they did here. They could do the Hulk, they could do Iron Man, just those other shows that were there in the 90s too. But I think Spider-Man obviously is the next logical choice, because I think that this cartoon was the next logical choice. I mean, as far as the original 90s, and then they did the Spider-Man, which was the next logical choice. I think if they do the same thing here, I think they might, and they do it as good, and they follow the same recipe, I think that they'll have success. I think the toys are great, but they need to. They're just too expensive. If they start doing Spider-Man toys in the same vein, again, just run into the fact that they're just so damn expensive. The prices have to come down, or people have to start making more money. Because, like I said, $25 for an action figure is just way too much money. $5 for one of these figures in the 90s. Right? Inflation doesn't work like that, where it's like, oh, well, in the 2000s they're 10, in the 2000 teens they're 15, and their 2020s they're 20. That doesn't work. That's not how inflation works. Like I said, I don't know whatever the current, if you were to look up, say, the action figures from the 90s at $5 a piece. I don't even think they're $5. I think they're $4.99. I think they were like $3.99, to tell you the truth, but I can't remember exactly. I know they're more than $2.99. Let's say they're $5, right? 30 years later, are they $25? I'd say $15 is what this is my guess. $15 is what they should cost. Because you think 90 to 2000, $15 is what they should cost for the 6-inch figures. Because, the 6-inch figures aren't much bigger than the 5-inch figures that they had back then. I'm sure there's more points of articulation. Everything's different now. Just things are done differently. So yeah, I would say $15 is what they should cost. If they could bring, and that's what they should have done. They could have had Marvel Legends, regular Marvel Legends, and kept them at $25 to kind of get that collector market. But if you wanted to sell to kids, and you wanted to, like my son's allowance is $15 a week. He couldn't buy one of these figures every week. One figure. Couldn't buy one action figure every week with the allowance that I give him. Or even if I gave him 20, he'd still be $5 short, right? I can't really afford to give him 20. But definitely in the 90s, a kid who was 10 years old or 12 years old in the 90s, right? His parents probably gave him more than $5 a week. Let's just say they gave him $5 a week. He could go out and buy an action figure, one a week. Now you can't even do that unless you find it on sale. If your allowance is $20, see where I'm going with this? I think it's just a little too high. I think they need to come down a little bit. Just curve that off a little bit. You know, you'll sell more. Trust me, you will sell if the toys are more affordable. You will sell more toys. Now, I don't know how the McFarlane thing is going, but I'm assuming I've seen that they've sold out of everything of the new stuff. So I think that the McFarlane thing's working. The toys are cheaper and they are selling like hotcakes as far as the superpowers, not the multiverse. So I think the figures for this show, I guess you could say, well, they've got the 4-inch figures and those are $10 a piece. I get it. You're gonna start getting into all these weird little splitting hair things. You know, I think what they should have done is if they're gonna try to be as faithful to the original show as this, they should have just redid the new figures in the same. I'm not saying form factor, meaning they don't have to be the same points of it. They just make them more articulated, but I think they should have done like that 5-inch. They should have done like that 5-inch style action figure where it's bigger than the 4-inch. It's not super small. It's not a full 6-inch figure, and they could have made them articulated. They didn't have to be 5 points or whatever, 8 points or whatever the old ones were. Could have made them look better. The packaging is fine. Nothing wrong with the packaging. They didn't have to do the original '90s packaging, and they could have made them $15, and I think that would have probably been the thing to do. Maybe they'll still do that. I don't know, but that's what I would have done. And I think that would have been a good... I mean, like I said, if I was at the store and I saw the Jean and the Magneto for $15 a piece, and I know that they're all going to be $15 a piece, and they probably would have been on sale for $12 then, I would have had no problem buying them. But like I said, the $25 and even at $18.99 is like, it was close, but I didn't do it. So that's where I'm at with that. All right, let me let you go. Remember, like and subscribe if you like this. Tell me give me all your thoughts. I see people are starting to finally get their videos out now, doing their reactions and they're talking their reviews and talking about this. Again, I'm not trying to jump on the bandwagon myself, but I'm generally interested in this, and obviously I try to make videos and stuff that I'm generally interested, records, whatever, and I'm generally interested in this, and it just seems topical, so I'm going to talk about it. So here we go. Tell me what you think, and I will see you on the next video. All right, bye-bye.